All right, I'm going to do two examples from your worksheet 3, 4-6 worksheet 3. This is the one on the front, how to complete the square to find x-intercepts. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure my constant term is on the other side, which in this case my 4 is already on the other side, so I do not need to add or subtract to get my 4 to the other side. Now I need to make sure that my a term equals 1. So this one, in this case, it doesn't, so I'm going to divide everything by 5 to get my a term to equal 1. So that leaves me with x squared plus 6/5 x equals 4/5. Now I need to change this so that I can write it as a perfect square binomial. So I'm going to go ahead and take my b term, and instead of dividing by 2, it's just b over 2 squared. Dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by a half. So I'm going to take 6/5 times 1/2 and square it, which is 3/5 squared, which is, in this case, 9/25. So I'm going to add 9/25 to both sides, so it looks like this. X squared plus 6/5 x, and then plus 9/25 equals 4/5, and then plus 9/25, because whatever we do to one side, we must do to the other. Now I'm going to rewrite this as a perfect square binomial. So in that case, I need to have x plus, and whatever this b over 2 is, in that case, b over 2 is 3/5, which is squared equals 4/5 plus 9/25. 4/5 is also 20/5. Or I'm sorry, 20/25 plus 9/25, which is 29/25. Now to solve this for the x-intercepts, I'm going to solve for x, so I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And remember, it's going to be the positive or the negative version of it, because I could have a positive or negative, and then if I square it, it's going to give me the same thing. So in that case, this one cancels, and I'm left with x plus 3/5 equals plus or minus 29, square root of 29 over the square root of 25, which I can't simplify 29, but I can simplify the square root of 25, which is the square plus or minus the square root of 29 over 5. Now to get x by itself, I'm going to subtract 3/5 from both sides. So in this case, I have x equals, this cancels, negative 3/5 plus the square root of 20, plus or minus the square root of 29/5. The exact answer is negative 3/5 plus the square root of 29/5, or negative 3/5 minus the square root of 29/5. That's the exact answer. If you want to find the rounded answer, you would get a calculator, and you would just plug it in. So I put in, I have to put my square root in first because of my calculator, the type of calculator that I have. If you have an OGT, or a red calculator like this, okay, or a pink calculator, you would just plug it in the way it's written. But in my case, I'm just going to take negative 3 plus the square root of 29 and then divide that by 5. So, I can't see my calculator. Square root of 29 plus negative 3 is just the same thing as minus 3, and then divided by 5. So I'd get 0.48 rounded, and then for the other one, square root of 29 plus 3, and then all of that divided by 5. I can't see my 1.68. So completing the square for the x-intercepts. And if you wanted to write it as an x-intercept, you would just put it in as comma 0, comma 0. Now completing the square to find the vertex. It's a little bit different. So this is number 9 on your worksheet. Let's go ahead and work on this one. Stretch this out to give more room. All right, So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my y over and change my y to 0. So I have 0 equals negative 2x squared plus 2x minus 5. And just like to solve for the intercepts, I'm going to take my 5 to the other side, my constant. So I have 5 equals negative 2x squared plus 2x. Now, I have to have an a value equal to 1, so I'm going to factor out a negative 2 on just this side. So I have negative 2, and then I'm going to divide each of these by negative 2 to see what I have left, which would be x squared minus just 1x. And on this side, I still just have 5. Now, when I want to change what's in parentheses to a perfect square binomial. So that means I'm going to have to add, I'll just leave that for there, I'll rewrite it. I'm going to have to add a plus blank at the end. So that means on this side, I also have to add a plus blank. However, here's a common mistake. That plus blank is going to be multiplied by whatever's on the outside of this. So I have to multiply that on the outside here as well. Common mistake that students make. So how do I figure out what goes here? I'm going to take my b over 2, so negative 1 over 2 and square it, which gives me 1/4. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Now that I have my perfect square binomial, I'm going to rewrite it. This is just x minus 1/2 squared, negative 2, and then negative 2 times 1/4 is just negative 1/2. Negative 1/2 plus 5 is 4.5, or 7 over 2. I'm sorry, 9 over 2. Or, yeah, 9 over 2. Make sure I get that right. And then to put it in vertex form, I'm just going to subtract 9 over 2 from both sides. And then replace your 0 with a y. So I have y, vertex form, to replace the 0 with a y. I have y equals negative 2 x minus 1/2 squared minus 9 over 2. My vertex is always just going to be my hk. Remember, h is opposite, so it says negative 1/2, but the vertex is actually positive. If you wrote that as a fraction or as a decimal, it'd be 0.5 and then negative 4.5.